Hello, everyone in TV land. Welcome to AGH at home. Apparently my chair is almost broken. Gonna have to get a new chair soon. Anyways, it's still safe enough for me to sit on. Yes, welcome. My name is Tyler. Very happy that you could be joining us. We'll give it just a minute for some folks to kind of trickle in, and then we'll get started with our project shortly. As always, these videos are they're always recorded. So if you're not able to make it during the live stream time, you can always watch this again, and all that content is always you can find it on here on our YouTube channel, or you can find it on our website, AGH at Home, which is super cool. So today we are going to be looking at what's called Contemporary Collage. And I'm going to get into a little bit about what that may or may not mean shortly. Because there's a lot of different interpretations that we could have for that. But we're going to start with some of the materials that you're going to need to get started. So while we're kind of waiting for people to roll in, you can go ahead and gather up what you might need and get ready to go. Or if you're just watching, then we're still happy to have you join us. It's nice to have some company while we're making some art. So today, like I said, we're doing collage. So I've got a lot of different materials. We did a collage thing a couple of weeks ago, but for that we did mostly abstract work with big blocks of color, shapes, things like that. What I've gathered here today is a lot of things from magazines, books, newspapers, things like that, things that already have pictures, existing pictures, and we're going to sort of cut and paste and rearrange things into sort of a new composition. So I've got a few things here. Let's sort of bring you down so that you can see. These are all options of what you can use. I've got also the white glue. So scissors and glue, those are your basic mainstays for this. If you don't have glue, you can use tape. That's fine. I'm going to use a glue stick today because I find the white glue at least for me lately, it's been getting really sort of mucky and messy. I always keep some drawing things handy in case I need to like write something down or sketch, or if I want a certain shape or something, I can sketch it out ahead of time. You can also you can use markers to alter things a little bit, or paint, or really whatever you'd like. And then if you feel comfortable with them, you can use an X-Acto blade or a box cutter or something like that. That's just something, make sure that you're comfortable with it. And if you're not, basically everything we're going to be doing here can be done with scissors. And another option is if you don't feel comfortable using the blades, but you still want to get like a more precise cut, and you have someone around who, maybe has more control or bigger hands or whatever, then they can use those. If I'm ever using a blade for that, I always use something underneath it, like a placemat, or this is like a cutting mat. You could also use like a thin piece of wood, just so that way I don't have not making gashes and cuts in the table. So those are the tools that we have. Put those there. And in terms of other materials, collage is a lot about collecting and organizing, and then reassembly or making design choices or decisions. So I'll show you an example I have here. This is made with a couple very textured paper that I made with acrylic paint. I just sort of like scraped the paint over. And then these were simply photocopied out of a book. So when I was preparing for this, I looked around and I didn't really have any magazines. So I had to go and get some. So if you don't have magazines at your disposal, that's totally fine. You can just as easily, maybe you don't have a photocopier, but you can scan something and print it off, or you can simply look up pictures on the internet and print those off. If you have a printer, there's also lots of other things that you can do. So what I've done is I would kind of go through these magazines, and okay, there's an animal. So what I'm going to do is kind of rip that out and put it in my little animals folder. Okay, so I've got like a bear in there. Got a few other things. What else do I have? Jellyfish. Okay, so as I'm, the first sort of phase to this is collecting. This is especially helpful if you're not quite sure what it is that you want to make. So there's another polar bear. I could cut that out or rip that out. And as always, make sure it's a magazine that someone isn't really going to read anymore, because you don't want to be ripping up someone's favorite magazine. See, there's another picture of a person. And what I'm going to do, since I'm just sort of cutting it out just quickly. Okay, put that over here. And let's see, I've got my people one. I'm going to put my running person in there. I've got lots in here. And sometimes what you can do is when you cut them out, you can kind of cut around them a little bit. This will help you kind of in some of the later steps, and I'll show you how. The other ones I have are nature and space. I really like space, so I just included it in there. I found lots of planets. And sort of color, abstract, and kind of background stuff. This one's empty because I dumped it out to look at all the things I had. But my pile of that stuff is right here. So you can see this was a picture out of a magazine. And these were sort of pieces cut up from old paintings or old screen prints that I had done previously. That's from a cereal box. So I'm going to use this stuff a little bit later on as well. Now, once you've gone through the magazines, you've collected, maybe you've organized. If you don't want to organize, that's totally fine. But this is just a method something that I find helps me a little bit. Now I'm going to kind of go through my little folders and pick out things that really stand out to me. So some of the things that I've chosen, this is sort of my pile of people. And you can see I've already started to cut around some of them a little bit. This person I cut all the way around as best I could. And these people as well. And then you can also do partial cutouts. So I cut along the edge of this person, but I left some of this. This was a truck, I think. And this one here, there's a girl running on a beach. I cut the top off, but I left the kind of beach part. And I might actually do that with this one. I really like this picture. I think I might use this one. I'm going to probably cut the sky out of that. So there's my people. Put that back there. I've got some animals here, and you can see of the birds here. I kind of I cut the sky off. I'm going to save both of these pieces because I might. This is the one, the birds. That's the one that I wanted to use. And now by cutting the sky out, I could potentially, put them in space or something like that. Maybe down there, kind of on, I think this is Mars, but anyways, or the elephants, something like that. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going for today. So that's my animals pile, and then I have my some from my nature pile here. Oops, just dropped. I dropped the sky on the floor. That's okay, I'll grab it later. This one was on the thumbnail. I used this sky, and then I cut this one out, the elephants kind of in front of that. And that's kind of a little bit what we're going for. We're cutting pictures up, different pictures from different sources, and rearranging them almost like a Frankenstein kind of process. So the next thing that you're going to need is something to work on, because I'm not going to glue right to the table because that would be silly. So I'm going to grab a sheet of paper. You can work on whatever you want. I've got some sort of thick cardstock here that works nicely. You can work on paper. You can work on cardboard, a wood panel, whatever you have with you. Another thing that you can do if you don't have this kind of thing, or if you don't have glue, a neat idea is that you can, kind of create some of these. Maybe I'll put the birds down there. Create something kind of like, kind of like that. You can take a picture of it, and then you can upload that like onto Instagram or something like that, and even like take these apart and rearrange them to make a whole new collage. Someone at work had that idea. I think that's a really great idea. All right, but I'm going to go back to my paper because I'm going to be gluing my things down. Maybe I'll do it this way. All right, so I'm going to choose the thing that sort of stands out to me the most. And so far, it's been this. I do really like the space and this lady. I think those are the three things that kind of really stand out to me. And I'm going to kind of sort of build around those things. Okay, so this one I've already kind of cut it up. Now I'm going to move on to this one. And just for the sake of speed and time, I'm just going to cut it quickly with the knife. So when I use this knife, I usually cut sort of in a straight line like that. And instead of cutting like this or like that, I'm going to rotate the image. So that way I'm holding the blade still very, very comfortably in the most comfortable position. And I'm just rotating the magazine picture that I'm cutting. Okay, I'm going to save that for now, just in case I want to put it back together. So that way I'm not doing any tricky like wrist angles with a very sharp blade. So that's just some nice little knife safety thing there. I'm probably just going to cut that right off, actually. There we go. Okay. Maybe I'll zip that to make it a little straighter. Okay, and then I've got that can stay. And now what I'm going to do is mix and match a little bit, do a little bit of rearranging here and there, hopefully so that I can get something that I'm kind of happy with. Now I'm doing mine upside down so that you can see it right side up. So this might be a little bit of a challenge, more of a challenge for me. But what I've done is I've cut off the sky for this one. So that means I need to get a new sky. So this one might not work for this picture, but I'll save that for later. So let's see, maybe I'll use this one, perhaps. You know what? I'm going to give this one a little bit of a break, and I'm going to go to these birds because I like those. So if something's, you know, this one, I like this one, it's not quite working out, that doesn't mean it's never going to work out. I'm just going to sort of put it aside, forget about it, and maybe come back to it later. Maybe I'll find something that'll work. And then maybe I'll put this guy over here. He's kind of like looking at the birds or something like that. So what I've tried to do here is, because I'm taking images from completely different parts of magazines, I've tried to get things that are kind of similar in color so that they might kind of look like they were meant to be together, which you don't have to do if you don't want to. Maybe that's why this one didn't quite work on this sky, because this is a really sort of red kind of dusk sky, and this is clearly in like daytime. So perhaps that's why that didn't quite work. Okay, so maybe this guy's over here looking at the birds, or maybe this lady. I'm going to save her for later as well. Actually, I think that like I wanted to use this one for something like this, like giant lady peeking over a hill like that. Okay, so I think that's good. And now I think what I'll do is I'm going to dig into my little pile of kind of more abstract shapes. And I'm going to kind of see if anything fits there, so I can kind of like, I can slide it underneath if I want to, or I can put it on top. You know, that's probably a bit too much. I don't want it to overpower. I don't want these to overpower the central image, right? The thing that I chose as my central focus has been these birds. You know, I started with the hot air balloon, and now I've switched over to the birds. So I want to make sure I'm not putting too many things in so that you just completely lose the birds. You want to be able to still see them. All right, so I think I'm happy with this. So now I'm going to start kind of little by little gluing things down. I'm going to move these to the side, and I'm going to start with this one because that's in the back. So just like if we're sort of working on a landscape, you want to be working on the background first. And the more you can work in layers, the more kind of depth your artwork will have. Even though the artwork I'm making itself physically is flat, you know, I'm working with flat paper. By doing all these things, you know, by layering it as opposed to putting it like right there, it sort of pushes those mountains back a little bit. Another thing that you can do if you're going through magazines or newspapers and you find a picture on both sides that you really, really like maybe I really wanted to use that for something. If you have access to a photocopy machine, just go ahead and photocopy that, and that way you'll have a picture of the front and the back. Or that's another way. You know, if you wanted to possibly have more than one, like if I wanted to have, you know, if I wanted to have 30 elephants instead of just 2, I could just photocopy this a number of times, and then I would have that. Okay, so this fella is going to be going down here. It's kind of looking up there. And then where did I have that? That one was kind of down there. Maybe I'll sort of bring it in and overlap that one a little bit. some of this glue in there. And this one. Now I chose these colors because I really like this pink and this orange here. I think that they kind of match with the pink and the orange that's happening in the sky here. That's kind of why I chose those, because here we have some harmony between the greens and some of those yellows, and then some of that orange and yellow in the beak. You kind of see it up here a little bit. So I've chosen a lot of these colors, hopefully, at least in my opinion, to try and to match together so that it kind of sings in like harmony as opposed to like clashing and being really obnoxious, which is fine if you want to, you know, I think that can be done really effectively if you want to make something that's a little more sort of aggressive. So what I've done here is, again, these birds are kind of my focal point. So this shape, the two lines are kind of like pointing towards there. This man, he's looking at them. So I've kind of tried to bring the direction kind of going in like that. Now, you don't have to fill up the whole entire page if you don't want to. The nice thing about collage is that if there are parts that you do or don't like, you know, perhaps I don't want all this white space at the bottom, or I don't want as much there. No problem. I'm just going to zip some of it off. And then maybe I'll trim a little bit off this side. Right. And I'll do the same over here. Actually going to leave a little bit of a white border because I do want to show, I do kind of like how this this kind of comes right off the edge there, and it kind of, you can see the collage process going on there. All right, so now I'm gonna move on to and do one more little thing. I do want to do something maybe with this space. Ooh, this one here, this looks good. So what we've got is we've got these images of people or animals like this. This kind of makes sense. We've got animals in nature. There's a person, you know, maybe a bird watcher, and a few geometric things. That kind of like, well, it makes sense, right? Those things kind of match. But what I want to do now is kind of take something that completely out of context and put it in a totally different setting to make you kind of think like, oh, what's going on there? So perhaps I will, you know, for this one, I'll use this lady, but I don't want too much of that. So I'm just gonna fold that behind there. Actually, yeah, I do want her. I'm finding that if I put too much of her body down where the planet part is, I get to lose it a little bit. So I'm going to move her up a little bit, maybe there, so that her head is poking out to where the sky is. Just to get a little bit more contrast there. And I'm going to glue this lady just directly onto this. I'm not going to use a background or anything on this one. Just going to go kind of quick. Okay. There we go. And she looks kind of shocked or a bit surprised. So maybe she should be looking at something that's maybe kind of shocking or surprising. So let's take a look through our piles here. Okay, I've got another one of these. Maybe she's shocked about or is confused. I mean, I would be confused if I saw a purple triangle just floating in space, kind of like that. Okay, so that's kind of what we were looking at today. Some sort of contemporary collage. I didn't notice I didn't add all of the things. I still have all this stuff here. I have all this stuff that I can still use. Even though I've collected it all, I haven't loaded it all onto one sheet of paper. I've got more paper here. Like I've got one here. I've got this one. I've got lots and lots of paper. And of course, you saw you can just collage right into magazines or on magazine. You don't need a backing paper. So you can make, you don't have to use all of the things that you collected on the same piece of artwork. You can kind of spread them out. So now, like, I've still got this thing. So maybe I'll think about, maybe as I'm searching, you know, I've got this kind of in the back of my mind, but as I'm searching or just kind of like looking through images or magazines or whatever, maybe I'll come across something that'll be just perfect for this. So think about things that, you know, to you are going to be sort of, that are going to fit just right. So that's it for today. Let's hang this up right there. Maybe this one too. Very little. Here we go. We've got some collage. I'd love to see what you've made, if you've made something with us today, even if it's not the stream time. If you watched the recording and made something, we always love to see your artwork. So please feel free to share it with us. You can post it on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, and tag us in it. You can use this hashtag AGH at home, which we're getting going. It's just really nice to see what people are making. It's pretty encouraging. So again, thanks very much for joining us and for coming out. My name is Tyler, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.